My name is Zimkhitha Williams, and in life I have come to adapt Lolo as well. So my full names are Zimkhitha Williams Lolo. I'll get to the Lolo part along the story. I was born in Port Elizabeth, now known as Gqeberha, but I don't have much of a childhood there. When I was, I believe, 5, my parents relocated to Pretoria, and that's where I started my early primary life in Pretoria. I went to a school that was known as Acacia Primary School. It was a bilingual school, so English, Afrikaans. Unfortunately, no Xhosa. I'm Xhosa, but I don't relate a lot to the culture. Just adding that there. So I did my primary school years there, and we didn't stay long in Pretoria then. I think I stayed 2 weeks in that high school, and my parents relocated again, and we moved to Mossel Bay. This was in 2007, so I've been here for a while. Then I had no friends, so the social life I had developed, the books, the athletics, the sports, it all disappeared. And the only thing I had was school. But I didn't have a love for school anymore. It was a burden to me. I didn't know these people. It was more Afrikaans now than Pretoria. There was no social life. And I died at a young age, falling into depression, falling into challenges of I don't want to be here. And I don't know how to get this point across to my parents, but I don't want to be here. But I remember watching a movie. I can't remember the name of the movie, but there was a famous actor in it, Nicolas Cage. And Nicolas Cage in this movie was had a role of being an architect. He was the main character, and there was a drift between him and his wife, but his occupation in the movie was an architect. And I remember there was a model he had built, and he was doing a presentation to a board or a client. And even though the story was about him and his wife and the challenges they were having, I was interested in that aspect. Okay, this guy is an architect. What is this? I need to find out more about this. And this was in grade 8, late grade 8, early grade 9. And I did my research. I delved in it. What is architecture about? And I fell in love because it's about creating. It's about designing spaces for people to use, and you have to understand people when you're in that field. You have to know how people operate and predict it in what you're going to design and create for them. So I fell in love with it. This was as early as grade 9 because I knew the subjects I had to do in high school. I had to do mathematics. I had to do we called it engineering, graphics, and design. It was the technical drawings. I loved science. And by then, I didn't like theory. So your history, business studies, I knew was not for me. And that's how I decided I want to be an architect in grade 10. And my subjects were around that. I started speaking to people who were in the field. Had my dad go around asking architects he knew at the time, and they advised I even take up art as a subject. And I did. Luckily, the school offered it, so I took it as an extra subject where I started practicing just free drawing, abstract drawing, sasitata, like chairs would be placed on the table, and you had to draw this chair. You had to focus on an angle on the lines, and it was. For me, it was very strange at the time, but now that I'm older, I understood you had to be able to capture something in the essence of it in a way that you can show it to someone else without having to explain it. They need to look at it and understand why you drew it at this angle, why not from the top. And I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I consider myself to be extrovert, so expressing myself was through drawing. It was through drafting, designing, because even technical drawings, I really enjoyed it at the time. I did a subject called civil engineering. all my subjects were, for my parents, unheard of, because they knew your accounting, your biology, life sciences, physical sciences, natural sciences, okay? And I told them, no, that's not what I want to do. They didn't understand. What is this child talking about? My parents wanted a doctor, an accountant, even a lawyer, not an architect. And I had to prove it. I had to stand my ground and prove it. So for the first time, I was being rebellious in a way, because I'm not following the norm from what our parents knew, what they grew up being told that they need to do and strive for. So that's where I found myself striving towards architecture. My first challenge with this in high school already was in grade 12, where we had the open day. We were privileged. The school arranged for universities to come and present the schools, the courses, and we had like a career expo day. So I remember speaking to the representative there, and I'm like, hey, I want to do architecture. Tell me about the School of Arts there. And he was like, you know what? I don't think you would qualify for this course. There is another course, which is a diploma, architectural technology, that you can try for, but we don't think you'd qualify for this. And I was like, but why? No, he never looked at my marks or my results. He never asked about my results. He judged me at how I looked at that moment. And that's what this man said to me. And again, I said, I'm going to prove him wrong. This I'm going to do. And that stuck with me. And I told my dad about this. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, no, Dad, I've made up my mind. I'm doing architecture. Can we go to PE? They have a career expo coming up. Can we please travel to PE for the weekend? It was on a Friday. We'd have to leave early Friday morning, come back the Saturday if we can sleep over. My parents agreed, and we went to PE. It was a blessing to have parents who were open-minded, who allowed me to explore what I wanted to do. I'm grateful for that. Otherwise, I could have easily fell into teaching, fell into accounting, things that they wanted and imposed on myself. So that's how I started studying architecture. So at NMMU, started first year. This was in 2011, because I did my matric in 2010, World Cup, first World Cup in South Africa. Yay! 2011 was amazing. Under strict parents, this is the first time out of the house. You're in a different city, you're living by yourself, but you're also studying. There's a lot. I got into the school, and immediately I realized, Kuti, we're not playing here. We're here to work. We had 8 main subjects, I think modules, if I can call it that. But our major, we had 4 majors, and the one major was 56 credits. The rest was like 4, 8. But this 56 was like your life. If you fail this, you fail everything. That's how it felt like. It was design. And design was basically about you getting a brief. You have to design an observatory. I think that was one of the first projects we had. An observatory is where you go and study stars and the planets and things like that, if I remember correctly. But you're given an abstract site, so out in the middle of nowhere. And you've got to study your environment, the landscape, the nature, and respond to the brief in the form of a building, which was interesting. It's also subjective. It's what attracts you. And the first challenge for me was presenting this to a lecturer who's going to ask you questions. Why did you do this? What was your thinking behind this? And as I said, it's subjective. If they don't understand or don't like it, your marks are going to reflect that. It's not straightforward. Okay, this is right, this is wrong, here's a memo. It's always how you present what you've designed. And if people receive it well, it will reflect in the marks. So it was always the challenge. And every week, I've got a project, I've got to present. What am I going to do? I need to draw, I need to build models. It was a costly course in the beginning. I started to realize it because you've got to buy materials, you've got to buy paper, special crayons, you have to print. It started becoming very costly, and I could feel it, my parents could feel it, but they wanted to support their child. Passed everything first year, went to second year, fell into a depression, and we struggled with school. There's the demand that you can't relax. You've got to be there, you've got to be building models, you've got to be drawing, you have to present. It's continuous. It's that demanding. I lost friends in that because my friends didn't understand. I mean, you have people studying BA general. It's a lot of work, yes, but they are more free in their schedules. And you know, Friday is Friday, girls are going out, and I'm like, my friends, I can't. I need to go do a project. I've got presentations on Monday. And I lost a lot of friends that I made in first year. But I gained friends in the course because you're with a group of people and you needed that. You needed each other to support. The major subject, as I said, was design. And to that, it was the history of architecture, it was the theory of architecture, and it was the detailing of architecture. So you needed to understand the history of the Renaissance, the history of the Industrial Revolution and how it affected architecture, from your really Catholic, your traditional buildings, to modernization where it's boxes, it's lines and glass, how it developed to where we are now, because it does affect or influence how you're going to design and the type of buildings you're going to bring to the world. And we had to learn about all these famous architects who are doing wonders in the world. My favorite till this day is Zaha Hadid. She's a female. I think she was based in the Europe side. She passed now in the recent years, but her work was abstract, like not your boxes. It was diagonal lines, star-shaped buildings. You have no idea how they work, but they look cool. So that was my field of study. I enjoyed it. From my background, my home, friends and family, it wasn't understood. I would have the comment, "Oh, are you an architect?" And I'm like, "No, guys, it's architect. I want to be an architect." What do you do? Are you just drawing? It's so easy to draw. Why are you so busy? I'm like, they don't understand. But I didn't want to bring them down like that. So that was my varsity days. In third year, that was the final year for the undergrad. You get 3 projects. That's for the design, your major subject. And when I was still studying, the program had the undergrad and your postgrad. So your undergrad was 3 years. Your postgrad was 2 years, but it was a master's program. I think now they've changed it. You go into 4th year, which is your honors, and then your 5th year, which is your master's. At the time I was studying, I couldn't afford to continue with my post-grad studies. So the idea was to go work, save some money or get a bursary, and then come back to finish my post-grad, which I never got to. I started working and I started earning money, but I started also growing in life, responsibilities, which became really hard at that time to immediately go back to school. I graduated in 2015. So my last year was 2014, but of course graduation is always the following year. I was already working. I started working early 2015 for a female architect in Mosa Bay. She was running an office solo. She had people helping her, but on an ad hoc basis, whenever she had projects that she needed help on. I started working for this lady. Agape was the company's name. She worked mainly on government projects. So it was additions to colleges, schools. I remember the one interesting project we had was a piggery. We had to design ablution facilities to a piggery. And for me, it was a shower, toilet, and a change area. But no, We needed to understand how the workers work in a piggery, the dangers of contamination if they don't clean properly after they're done dealing with the pigs, feeding or cleaning the area. It was an interesting project, but I realized varsity didn't prepare me for this. Varsity gave me the theory, gave me the history, but it never gave me the practical tools for the workplace. Now, I was learning this in the workplace, but I must say varsity gave you the creative mind. It opened that side of me where you can think creatively to our everyday problems. So a lot of the things in terms of working, in terms of how we actually draft, what council regulations are. So council, your local municipalities or local authority, because you need to submit plans to them for whatever structure is being built, whatever building is being built. I learned in the office. I learned under this woman. That was my first workplace where you need to regulations, things like building regulations, because there's standards and regulations that you need to adhere to. I learned in the workplace. We were introduced to this in varsity, but they didn't want to limit your creativeness, so they never hammered on it. So a lot of these I got exposed to in the workplace. I worked with the lady for 2 years, and that was the duration of my candidacy. Because once you register with that professional body, you need to work for at least 2 years. And every month you're doing submitting records. This is what I was exposed to this month. I've spent so many hours drawing. I've spent so many hours on site, because we also go to site inspections while construction is taking place. For whatever you design, you need to monitor it. You've spent so many hours in meetings, you meet with clients, you get the brief, we call it a brief, but basically your client telling you what they want, and your response to what they want is the design. So I started exploring other avenues, and I realized, hey, there's a spot in local authority. There's a department or a section called building control. And I was working in the private sector, drawing plans and monitoring progress for construction. But these plans that we were drawing, we would submit to building control, because we needed permits to build. We needed occupation certificates that were issued by a local authority once your building was complete. And so I was like, okay, there's a spot for me on the other side. There's a home. And income was better compared to where I was. And I applied. My first position in local authority was a building inspector, where it was interesting. I was on site. It was mostly construction. Now we're checking how the building is being built, but in line with the regulations. And I knew them like the back of my hand. So all my experience in private sector with plans, with the regulations, really came in help. I quickly adapted in the environment of local authority. My only challenge there was the internal systems that were used and the protocols. It's more strict now, because you've got certain days of leaves. You've got clock in and clock out times. In private sector, it was more flexible. Like if I can't come in, I'm gonna send a text. I'll work in that time tomorrow, or at the end of the day or end of the week, my 48 hours will be clocked in. But in private sector, no, if you're not in at 7:45 in the morning, you've got to put in leave for it. So those were the dynamics that were a bit difficult for me. Now it's more strict, it's more rigid. But in that environment, I adapted, because I loved the stability, the safety, and 4:15, I could clock out and go be a mom. I didn't have to take work home. So that it was an interesting shift, but that drive in me to want to do more didn't die. So within the municipality, I applied whenever opportunities came available. From building inspector, I got appointed as a senior building inspector. So now I was sort of a supervisor to the building inspectorate section, and this is also the people you call when you're building and you need them to come check your foundations, you need them to come check your roof or your plumbing, or if there's problems you call because now you need assistance from the municipality. It was an interesting shift, but still in line with what I studied. My qualification was very much relevant. And I must admit, and I must say, now that I'm working for the council, I realize how we could do with more people who studied that field. At the time when I made the shift, work was also very scarce in the architectural industry, in the garden route. There were opportunities to go to your bigger cities, but as I said, I had two little ones. It wasn't easy for me to up and go. And yeah, from the senior building inspector post, I got appointed again, got another promotion, and now I've got the title of building control officer, which is the head of the building control section. And they call it the hot seat. It is, but purely because you've got to make decisions, you've got to make calls, and a lot of people report to you now. You've got the building inspectors, you've got the plans examiners, and your administration team. That's the entire building control that you've got to oversee and make sure it runs smoothly. This is similar to private sector, where you project managing a project from the clients to the consultants to the contractor. It starts and ends with you. So for me, that shift from private to government was easy, and this hard, but still easy. Hard in the aspect that I needed to learn, as I said, the rigid framework, the rules, the protocols, policies of government. For someone who wants to pursue this career, whether it being a professional or architectural professional route, or in local authority, in the municipality environment under building control, this is my advice. In high school, your subjects, one of the most important subjects to have is mathematics. The others, where you've got your technical drawings or you've got your arts, they are nice to have, but it's things that you can always learn in the field, or you can always learn in the course as you're studying. But what's very important is mathematics, that I've found is a requirement in most universities. In your mathematics, it's of utmost importance to try and aim for an average above 60%. On a side note, universities are very few compared to the amount of students or amount of children wanting to go to universities. So what I've seen is they will always go for your achievers first, and if there is space, your average marks. So work hard in your mathematics. As I said, I went into the Bachelor of Architectural Studies. There are other courses that could still lead you to the same career. For example, the Diploma in Architectural Technology, which has lesser requirements, but mathematics is still an advantage in it. There are colleges offering drafting, offering similar courses to the likes, but it's difficult to get into the career now, to be able to register professionally with colleges and those courses. You need to make sure that the college you enroll in can give you the qualification you need, because I think it's very known now. There's a lot of colleges coming and opening, teaching people skills, but you find that the qualification isn't recognized, and it becomes a real struggle because you expect to start working, you expect to get your qualification. And in architecture, or being an architectural professional, the main thing is you end up registering with a professional body, a regulatory body There is other ways in which you can get into the career as well, or into the qualification. Of late, we advise young children during their matric year or grade 11, if they've got an interest in architecture, approach firms, architectural firms you know of, do shadow work, go see what it entiles or entitles, because most of the times you study the course and you realize after first year, no, this is not what I want to do. Or you enjoy it in varsity, but by the time you start working, you realize I'm not a people's person. I can't pitch an idea. I can't engage in that level. And so you want to know what you're getting yourself into. As I say, I researched this in high school. And as much as I think I'm an introvert, I realized this is going to work for me. This is what I want to do. You could, with this qualification in architectural technologist, you can decide to go into the local authority, which is municipalities, into government, which is your public works, or work in private sector. So there's a lot of opportunities. A lot of people, after qualifying professionally, this means after your studies, there's 2 years that you need to work in training. After the 2 years, you need to write your board exams. There's 2 papers you write. And after passing these papers, then you qualify professionally. You can start working drawing plans in your community. You can work for other professionals or other architects in their firms. There's a lot of opportunities. You can even work for engineering companies that need people to draft their drawings, because engineers are about specifications. They love writing, and they will tell you how big your support structures need to be, so your beams, lintel over windows, or your foundations. But they don't enjoy drawing these things. And the best way to communicate any structural work is through drawings. So you can even find yourself working for engineering firms. You can a silly example is built-in cupboards. People who install cupboards. You can draw cupboards. At some point I was drawing cupboards, kitchen cupboards, layouts, giving sizes, specifying materials, and there's a lot you can do. It's a matter of what you are directed or called to do. As long as remain confident, don't doubt yourself. The first person who needs to see value in you is you. Don't expect people to give you that credit. You need to stand up for yourself and stand firm and believe in yourself.